This week on the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network, the Matildas are back in action as they get set to face Argentina in Melbourne and Canberra this weekend on Friday and Monday. We'll preview both of the games for you, while one lot of Aussies found Champions League success as another experienced cruel heartbreak as Arsenal defeated Barcelona in Europe and Melbourne City lost to Wuhan Jiangda in Asia. My name is Poletti and Burke. I have a feeling that we're going to be spending a lot of time on this Melbourne City game.
Yeah, probably.
But before we get into that, we will give you our Matildas preview. So the Matildas are set to face Argentina on Friday, May 30 at Docklands Stadium in Melbourne, and then in Canberra on Monday, June the 2nd. And we'll start with probably the best bit of news to come out of this two-match series, at least in my opinion anyway. Grace Gill is set to be the lead commentator on Monday night's broadcast. She's been in the co-commentator chair for basically every Matildas game in the 10 Paramount era of the broadcast. And on Monday, she's been doing quite a lot of lead commentary this year as well for the A-Leagues, both the A-League men and the A-League women competition. And Burke, she finally gets her crack at the job for the Matildas.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. She's been doing some really great work. I've always loved her as co-coms, and every time she does a dub game, I'm locked in because she always offers such interesting insight, having the background that she has. So I'm really excited that she's gotten the opportunity to do lead comms for the TV broadcast.
It is the first time a former Matilda will lead the call for a Matildas game. Honestly, I can't say just how good this absolutely is. I'm actually quite disappointed that I will be at the game in Canberra because it means I won't get to listen to it. If it's anything like the last time I went to Canberra for a national team game, I probably won't have access to the internet, so it's going to be fun. So yeah, I won't be able to pull up a stream of the game, but I will be listening back to the highlights later just to see how good of a job she's actually done. But I can imagine she's absolutely going to smash it out of the park. And of course, being a Canberra United, legend, it's only fitting that she gets the crack in her hometown. So the games against Argentina. So Argentina, they've recently defeated Canada, although that was a slightly rotated Canada squad. The likes of Nichelle Prince didn't play in that game, and some of the other starters came off the bench. Their recent history has seen them with 3-0 win and a 0-all draw against Chile in Chile, and then a 3-0 loss and that 1-0 win over Canada in Canada during the most recent window. Their last four results during the two windows in 2025. The captain is Aldana Cometi. She's also the most capped player for the Argentinian women's national team with 91 caps. They're currently ranked 33 in the FIFA rankings and were part of the last two Women's World Cups, and in 2023 failed to win a game, just amassing one draw, which was a 2-2 draw. Burke, I guess, obviously, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on Argentina. How does this preparation, how does these two games help Australia prepare for the Asian Cup?
Well, I mean, look, at the very least, you can say it's good game time for lots of young, hopefully, lots of young up-and-coming Tillies, and we can get them building their on-field chemistry with each other and with some of the more senior players. So at the very least, we have that. Anytime that the Matildas go into camp, really the biggest thing, especially when it's friendlies, it's building team chemistry and becoming more and more familiar with each other, especially when you have newer players, in the squad. As for other things, it's you can't really say much about like developing tactically because we are on, hopefully, hopefully on the cusp of this new coach. God help me if we are not. I will end up on the news. Um, yeah, so you can't say too much for like tactical development because we have no idea if the new coach, whoever that may be, is going to want to play the same sort of ball that Tom Samani's had them doing. They probably should stick to what Tom Samani's doing simply because we just don't have enough time to institute a new style of play before the Asian Cup. Um, but yeah, it'll there'll be good games, I think, and it's always good to have the Matildas get a run out in Australia, especially in Melbourne, for me. Also saw, I can't remember where I read it, that they've sold something like 35,000 tickets for Marvel, which is huge considering it's on a Friday night and competing with the AFL men's. So that will be really good.
I'm assuming there's a game at the MCG that night.
I believe so.
Well, given that they
Yes.
don't have any other venues in Melbourne to hold it,
No.
that would make the most sense that it would be at the
Yeah.
MCG.
Yeah.
Where do we look at this in terms of a test for the Matildas? Because obviously Argentina are lower on the rankings. Like their highest has been 27, their lowest has been 38. So they're sort of sitting around that, low 30s sort of mark in terms of where they fall on the rankings. They've got, a well mixed squad, a lot of senior experience. The likes of Virginia Gomez, 34 years old. And then you compare that to Sofia Dominguez, Milagros Martin, her 18 and 19. Francisca, whose surname I can't read on this screenshot that I've put together, but, who's also 19 years old. Kishi Nunez. Then you got, again, you go back to the other end of the spectrum. You got Florencia Bonsangundo, like the 31 years old, and then some people, some players in their mid 20s as well. Sophia Braun, 25 years old. The captain, Cometti, as I already mentioned, she's 29 years old. Like you've got such a mix of experience. It's really hard to see on the surface, at least, what sort of lineup they're going to put out.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna have a stab in the dark about that one. But yeah, you can see as you've read off, they've got a good mix of experience versus youth, or newer players, which is pretty much the same thing that we've got going on. I just want to say, as an aside, not that it has anything to do with the actual football chat, one of the players plays for a club called CSUB Roadrunners. I would love to be a roadrunner. Are you kidding me? That is so fun.
Meep, meep.
Literally, meep meep. It's hilarious. Yeah, and personally, for me, I don't honestly place that much stock in the ratings, the FIFA ratings, mostly because I'm still mad at FIFA for letting North Korea camp out in like the top 10 when they didn't play for like 3 years. So, yeah, the rankings, I do not care for them. They're none of my business, really. But it does give us a decent enough indication of where they're kind of at. It'll be, yeah, a good test for the Matildas. I mean, considering everything else that's happening, like you've got European teams busy with Tournament of Nations, whatever, Nations League, whatever made up
You got there
tournament
in
they've
the
got
end.
going on,
Third time was the charm.
whatever that made up tournament is. And then you've got the Euros. So there's not really too many options for teams to kind of play unless they wanted to go for an Asian team, but I don't know how likely they would have been to get them. I feel like a lot of the Matildas' like opponents kind of comes down to them being like, so who wants to fly to Australia? And then hope someone says yes.
Yeah,
Thank you,
because
Argentina, for picking up the phone.
as James Johnson mentioned, a former Football Australia CEO, James Johnson, mentioned in a press conference last year after the team returned from the Paris Olympics, was basically that, because Australia's hosting the Asian Cup, they control all the windows basically in terms of who they
Yeah.
play, where they play them, and whatnot. So yeah, uh, it makes it hard. And then you've got the fact that a lot of the sort of Asian nations that aren't really Korea Republic, or they've already played. They played Japan at the She Believes Cup, and as much as I like the idea of Japan as a test, I don't think we need to see another walloping at the hands of Japan, particularly on Australian soil. I can't imagine that's going to do a lot of morale boosting confidence. So then you turn to the likes of a China, of a Vietnam, those sorts of teams. We've had China out here recently as well, so I can't imagine they'd be too keen to get on the cross continental flight again. And then you go down into the next lot of teams, and a lot of them getting ready for their own Asian Cup qualification. I believe it is. I believe it's not this window. I believe it's the next window. All those games are taking place, and so they probably want to be playing opponents that are going to better suit them to prepare for that. For those games, than playing a side who is still with an interim coach and looking ahead 6 months down the track. It probably doesn't make for the best tournament. So I can understand the idea behind getting someone like an Argentina in. On the Matildas front, Burke, we've talked about the squad already, but I just keep coming back to this idea of what are we going to learn from this squad? The fact that Kyra Cooney-Cross, Steph Catley, Caitlin Ford are all in the squad. They're still not in camp yet because, as we'll touch on later, they won the Champions League. There are some injuries, but I mean, I don't know how much we're going to learn here with the Matildas, just because some of these names you're not likely to see again, and because of the sheer amount of players who are either injured or have withdrawn from the window for other reasons. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm more than happy to see Carly Johnson finally get get her what's the phrase that I'm looking for here?
Her call up, her flowers, her
Flowers. That's the one I
tens.
was looking for. Get her flowers. She's gotten the call up. Who's the likes of Jada Wyman coming back in, hopefully to get her first cap. Which, as we touched on last week, Tom Samani can't believe, like, Jamila Rankin's back in with 2 caps previously. Morgan Aquino. I mean, the reality is that bar maybe Izzy Gomez and maybe Carly Johnson, if she impresses, I can't see a lot of these players being around for the next window unless some of the senior players continue to take time off rather than play 4 games in Perth, or we get that 36,000 player extended squad like we got for this November-December window last year for the Brazil and Taiwan games. You were at a press conference earlier on Tuesday, Burke, where Carly Johnson fronted the media. I guess what was the highlight for you out of that? Given that you wrote about it for Round Ball Australia.
Yeah, I felt she was really well spoken. She seemed really prepared for us, for the media. Personally, I did enjoy having a bit of a laugh with her and asking if she felt like she'd been a bit, ripped off in that she had to go to Canada to get her call up despite um, her golden boot contention in this league in the A leagues at one point during the year. Yeah, she was pretty much just similar vibes that you get from anyone that's a first time call up, that they are really keen to just learn as much as they can from all the other players and kind of see what Matilda's camp is all about, really. Yeah, it was also fun hearing about when she got the call up because obviously she's in Canada, so the time zone was very off for her. So she kind of just had to sit with it for a while before she could, call home and tell her parents and stuff. But yeah, she's clearly hungry for it. She wants the opportunity to impress, and I hope she does because she's a really exciting young player. She a lot of the time, quite often enough that I'll say it. She does give sort of Caitlin Ford vibes in that she will run at you and she will not care if you move or don't move. Because yeah, she did talk about how Australians are kind of bred to be physical when they play this football and all other kinds of football, really. But yeah, so she was, yeah, a great chat.
Yeah, no. So, and then I guess just sort of the other name that really stands out, which we've already talked about a little bit, is Isabel Gomez, player of the match in the grand final. Probably, I can't say robbed of the Julie Dolan because she was injured for half of the season,
Yeah.
but had she not, you feel like she would have probably won the Julie Dolan with how she played when she was on the field. How important is it for her to impress in this window, knowing full well that these are Samani's last games in charge, and with the new coach on the horizon, that it's best foot forward, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely important. It's also hard because we've got like a really stacked midfield when everyone's available. You've got Katrina Gorry out, you've got Tamika Yallop out, you've got who else am I thinking of that wasn't called up for mids? There are other players. There are other players that can push for contention as well from the dub. There's Alex Chidiac who could push for contention, who's been in and out of squads. Chloe Legarzo who can push for positions in midfield. So definitely very important. That was one of the other things that was spoken about during the press conference today about how this window is kind of like, especially for the younger, newer players, it's kind of like an audition for the next head coach because they'll obviously be watching to see, who's been called up and kind of why they've been called up and how they can prove to the new head coach that they need to keep being called up. Yeah, so anyone that's come in as a midfielder, so looking at you, Leah Davidson, Izzy Gomez, and Amy Sayer, they need, if they're given an opportunity to play, they need to take it with both hands and then find a secret third hand and also grab it with that. Because yeah, you when you're coming up against the likes of Meeks and Gori, especially because we know how powerful Gori and Karakin Cross are together in that pivot. Yeah, they gotta do everything they can, really. Pretty much everyone has to do everything they can, actually, because this roster in and of itself, the one that we have right now, is pretty stacked with talent and potential, and that's excluding a whole bunch of Matilda's starters. So good luck to them.
Good luck indeed. And last little bit on the Matildas. As I said, coming out of Football Australia's AGM last week, the news did filter out that the Matildas coach is going to be announced in June, whoever that person may be. And I do have here in the rundown, expected to be Samani's last games in charge, just because I would not put it past the FA to be like, hey, do you want the gig until the Asian Cup and then you can leave? With the way things are going at this point, with all the names that are on lists and aren't on lists, would it really surprise anyone at this point if Simone is just like, hey, can you stay till March, please? And you've got the permanent gig, and we'll deal with this again next year.
The only thing that should surprise anyone is when they see me again on the news for having shown up at Football Australia's head office, being like, why are you doing this? Let him retire. Oh my God. Oh my God, he's done this job 3 times now. Leave him alone. They
Yeah.
better not. They had better not. I spoke to him during the Victory Adelaide semi-final that was in Melbourne, and he was saying to us that this was going to be his last window. At that point in time, that's what he said. So I'm hoping he was telling me the truth, mostly for his sake, because, yeah, God knows he's been through it and put under a lot of unnecessary sort of media scrutiny and public opinion scrutiny. What am I trying to say? That makes sense. You know what I mean.
Yeah, we know what you
when
mean.
he hasn't needed to be under all of that like scrutiny and pressure. I mean, I guess he's probably very used to it, but still, that doesn't mean it needed to happen. Did any of this need to happen, Football Australia?
No.
Did any of this need to happen?
I mean, it's
we need to
certainly,
move on. I'm gonna
yeah,
lose it.
yeah.
Say your final piece, and then we have to move on.
Yes, no, that's fair. Look, I will say it certainly come with a lot more limelight than I think he was certainly used to. Because you got to remember the last time that he did this job, he was giving Sam Kerr and Caitlin Ford their caps. And I don't think we need a reminder of just how long they've been playing for the Matildas. Well, move on now to probably the second biggest story of the week. In fact, I would say it's the biggest story, but the Matildas are the Matildas, and do get the front page headlines. And this is certainly lining up the back page. Melbourne City were defeated in the Asian Women's Champions League final on penalties by Wuhan Jiangda. Melbourne City defeated Incheon Red Angels 1-0 thanks to a 94th minute Shelby McMahon strike to qualify for the final. In the game against Wuhan, it was 0-0 at half-time. Melina Mires coming up massive on the stroke of half-time to keep the scores level heading into the break. City then took a 1-0 lead in the 76th minute and then made it 2-0. But that was called off by VAR for a foul committed by Briley Henry. Wuhan then equalised via a penalty late in stoppage time to make it 1-1. And let's talk about that before we carry on with the rest of this game. So this was a handball against Mariana Speckmeyer that was correctly called, I think, in the end.
Yeah.
There's no doubting that it was a handball. Yeah. Although if that was a handball, you have to wonder why other things weren't handball, and we'll get onto that as well. But the absolute insanity of this was, so the ball hits Speckmeyer's arm inside the 18-yard box. There's no denying it. The referee doesn't call it at the time. She's then being chased by multiple Wuhan players who are all harassing her. Only one of them picked up a yellow card instead of probably all 3 of them, who absolutely, you could not have blamed the referee for just pulling the card out of the pocket and going, you're all in the book, and then, getting called over to the VAR monitor. And I say one of those only copped a yellow card, should have copped a red card because she tripped the referee as she was chasing her down. Now, I have never seen a player touch a referee in an aggressive manner. I understand accidental contact happens, but you're chasing down the referee with the deliberate intent of harassing the referee because she's missed a call, and then you trip her trying to catch up to her, and you only receive a yellow card is beyond me. It makes no sense, and to make matters worse, Burke, that player then went on to score the penalty.
I have never seen anything like that before in my life. I look, if that, I think it was Wang Shuang, I'm pretty sure, who did the tripping and scoring of the penalty. Um, if she can get off with a yellow card, Momo Hayashi should be allowed to like do a cartwheel onto the pitch to play for Brisbane in round one. Are we being totally and completely serious? I was like, my mind was blown that any of that happened and that they got away with it. I don't know what the ref was on. There were some really interesting calls. I'll say interesting. That were made for both sides, but more so for Wuhan, I feel. And a real lack of cards. I think City got 2 yellow cards during the game for
Yeah,
other
City
points,
seemed to be
but
copying all the cards, and then Wuhan were getting like nothing,
and they were
despite their
playing a
repeated fouls.
very physical game. I, yeah, I don't even know what to say. The tripping, like, I still haven't gotten over it. It just was unbelievable. I don't know how VAR didn't pick up on that as an incorrect refereeing decision, but yeah, it was mind-boggling stuff. Just absolutely cuckoo bananas. I never seen football like that before, and I hope I never see football like that ever again.
Yeah,
Ugh.
so look, my theory on that, and I'm not a referee, and thank goodness I'm not a referee, is the reason that VAR couldn't intervene is because it's been dealt with by the referee on the field, in the sense that, like, I understand, yellow cards get upgraded to red cards, but the referee would have felt the contact. The referee would have only felt that the yellow card was sufficient, even though every, like, 90, the other 99 times out of 100, that would have been a red. Because she's dealt with it as a yellow on the field, it's not the clear and obvious error that the VAR might have been able to get involved with. But yeah, as you said, cuckoo bananas, should have been a red. I got no issue with
Just
the penalty. Melbourne City should have gone into
crazy.
extra time, 1-1 with the player advantage. I guess looking before going into extra time, Holly McNamara was taken off. In hindsight, should she have been left on?
I don't know. I mean, because again, they're playing this super physical game, and we've discussed before her lack of self preservation skills. Um, well, maybe she does have the skills, she just doesn't utilize them during the game. I don't know. Um, so I think, and she was really, I feel, getting locked up quite a bit because they were playing with a back five. So it was really hard at a lot of points for City to try and progress forward through her, which is obviously, what they want to do. Um, so I think it's kind of neither here nor there taking her off. It was probably for the best, I would say, to take her off because remember she is still, well, she was at that point pretty close to being fresh off a concussion and a fractured nose. So I'm not mad about it. She might have been. Don't know. Didn't get to ask her. Didn't see her at the training. She didn't come over to the side I was standing on. Bit rude. Um, that is a joke. It's a joke. Please. But yeah, I don't know if it would have made a difference either way.
Yeah, no, that's more than fair. So then City go into extra time, and Wuhan had two what I felt clear and obvious errors that went against them by the referee. The first one was Rebecca Stott, and then the second one, I don't remember who the second one was, but they were both for mine handballs, and I just, if the first one's a handball, why are those two not a handball? And I'm not saying that, there's no conspiracy theory here. I don't think.
Not
I
yet.
just don't.
Not
I
yet.
just,
I'm here. I'm ready to conspire.
we'll get you the Dubcast branded tinfoil hat out. New merch idea. I'll just make a note of that. Look, it absolutely baffled me how one of those three was called a handball and the other two weren't. And I'm not, look, I'm happy that it went in City's favor in the sense that they weren't called. I just, the absolute inconsistency in the application of the handball rule in this game was bananas. And then Melbourne City lose a rather lengthy shootout. I mean, Rebecca Stott won the final MVP, or won the MVP of the final. She put in an absolute shift for the entire game. And you could see, if you watched the game, just, after the loss, she was in absolute tears. And honestly, I think Sam Lewis said it best. It's like the entirety of Australia and New Zealand just needs to, give Stoddy a collective hug, because it's just a legend of Australian and New Zealand football. You never want to see someone like that. So Wuhan Zhangda, the inaugural winners of the Asian Women's Champions League. VAR, as we've already talked about, it was not in use until the final. I don't recall it being used in the semi-finals. So it was literally, like, despite the fact that the games took place at the exact same venue, it was left until the final. I did have a look at the competition regulations earlier today. Where are we? So the AFC, so in Section 4, technical regulations, Section 18, subsection 18.4, the AFC may, at its discretion, decide to use football technologies in any match or matches in the competition or in the competition as a whole, including goal line technology, a video assistant referee system, or electronic performance and tracking systems in accordance with the laws of the game. And then under refereeing, Section 19, subsection 19.2, a VAR may assist the referee to make a decision using replay footage in accordance with the relevant provisions of the laws of the game. And then we go to Section 65, protest. Subsection 65.3, no protest shall be lodged relating to the referee's decisions regarding facts connected with play. Such decisions are final and binding and not subject to appeal unless otherwise stipulated in the AFC Disciplinary and Ethics Code. The same applies to any potential issue concerning the use and or operation of any goal line technology and or video assistant referee system. So Melbourne City can't even protest if they wanted to, per the competition regulations. I don't know if that means that we can't protest on their behalf, because
They can't protest, but the players were allowed to protest on the pitch.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Interesting. I'm cooking up some conspiracies, guys. I'm in the kitchen.
Yeah. I put this out on Saturday night, or very early Sunday morning, I should say. That was one of the craziest games of football I've ever seen, and maybe there's some Australian bias here, but City absolutely got screwed. And a lot of people agreed with me. Burke, did Melbourne City get screwed?
Yeah. I don't think I want to say anything else. We'll be here for like 2 days. They would, when they needed VAR, they didn't have it. When they probably could have done without VAR, they had it. I don't know what, like, whoever's got their, like, voodoo doll or whatever, put it down. Put it down. You leave Rebecca Stott alone. I'm sick of this. Yeah, I'm still rattled by multiple players chasing the ref down on the pitch, and one of them making contact with the referee and no one getting in real trouble for it. That's where I am. Everybody moved on, but I'm still here. Insert Taylor Swift voice there. Um, yeah. I don't know if they were like screwed out of the championship, but they were definitely screwed over in this game. Whether they would have won or not is a different story, but were they done over in terms of fair officiating? Yes. And I don't think you have to, you know, love or hate Melbourne City to be able to recognize that if you watch the game. So,
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, one thing that absolutely stood out in the aftermath of this game with the VAR is just the fact that, per my understanding, the referees or the assistant referees are told to keep their flag down until the play has concluded. And between the two goals, I definitely recall Briley Henry being flagged for offside the second she touched the ball, even though she was half a metre onside. And there's no VAR rules that will allow you to go back and change that and give Melbourne City that attacking opportunity back. I'm not saying they would have scored. I'm just saying if the idea is to correct human error, um, it needs to correct all human error. Otherwise, why do we even have it? But we've already had this discussion. Was it last week or the week before? Was the semi-final, I think, our semi-final review, grand final preview episode. So if you want to hear what we both had to say on VAR, go back and listen to that episode. We'll move on to happier news now. In the European Women's Champions League, there were a group of Aussies that found success as Arsenal defeated Barcelona to win the Champions League in Europe. The squad obviously features 3 Australian players, Caitlin Ford, Steph Catley, and Kyra Cooney-Cross. Burke, as an Arsenal fan, champions of Europe, it's got to feel good, right?
oh, I tell you what, I got absolutely destroyed by City losing, and then I got rebuilt immediately by Arsenal. Literally, we were so, like, it was so over, and then I was so back in the space of like a few hours. I wasn't actually sure at the time because I did stay up through the whole thing to watch. Yeah, Arsenal play Barcelona because I really hadn't. I didn't think they were going. Well, I thought they could win, but I didn't think it was likely because if you look at Barcelona, that kind of says everything. Um, so I was like, oh, do I need my like bad night to get worse? So I went in with very low to no to maybe below sea level expectations, and I was so very, very surprised. Thank you so much to the centre back pairing of Leah Williamson and Steph Catley. They were on one. I I didn't tweet it at the time, but I should have. That when the final whistle blew, that those two, definitely Williamson, but the both of them being marched straight into doping testing because they were like that was inhuman the way that they both stepped up and stepped to. It was a coaching masterclass as well from Renee Slegers, and Ford had a great game too. She made a really important block early on in the game, doing just giving everyone a real show and reminding us all that she did used to play in the defense as well a long time ago. But she's still good for it. She's still good for it. Yeah, it was so good to watch. It was real finals football because even though Arsenal had the lead in like the 74th minute, you still you were still on the edge of your seat. Like you could it was so close, but you could tell it could still be so far away so quickly. Cause yeah, Aitana Bonmati was also on one. Unfortunately, it didn't seem like the rest of Barcelona wanted her to remain on one. But like I posted on the bad website, Barcelona cannot do 3 Champions Leagues in a row, but Mariona Caldente can. And did. Thank you, Stina Blackstenius, for deciding that that night, that day, was the one where she would be on side. I owe her my life. um, and yeah, I've really been enjoying seeing all the celebrations, all the photos, or watched the trophy lift. They brought out the dog that they have at Arsenal. Her name is Win, because that's what they do. And they were lifting up they were on this huge balcony and they were lifting up this poor dog into the air. Um, and yeah, Katie McCabe was having a real good time leading her own chant with the big microphone on the stage. Yeah, and now they're on the plane back here. Apparently, they were actually meant to touch down, like they were meant to arrive Wednesday morning, so tomorrow morning, but they will be arriving tomorrow night because they have been busy.
As one
just a
would
little.
expect. Just absolute madness, honestly. Like I said, I've said it before, I say it again. They should not be in camp. They should be taking their much needed rest. Maybe Cooney Cross because she hasn't been playing a lot for Arsenal. Yeah. But honestly, if Ford or Catley take the pitch in Melbourne,
I will also be taking the pitch to protest. I think I said the exact same thing last week, but I'm going to be running down from the media tribune and then jumping the fence and getting like an $80,000 fine. Worth it. I expect you all to crowdfund the resources for me if that happens. Thank you.
So Arsenal win the Champions League. Move on to the NPL now, and I'm going to be honest, I don't have a lot to talk about from the NPL this week. It's not that not a lot happened, it's just that everything else happened this week, so I don't have a ton of takes. West Adelaide is still undefeated in NPL South Australia. They're the last undefeated side off the top of my head across the NPL competitions. 8 wins, 1 draw with a plus 19 goal differential. NPL New South Wales Women's continues to heat up. We've got a lot of teams all in close contention at the top of the table. I believe still Mount Druitt on top with 26 points off the top of my head. As I pull the ladder up now because I didn't have this ready. So Mount Druitt 26, Stingrays 25, and then you go 22, 22, 21, 20, 19, 19, and then a drop off to 9th place with 13 points. So very congested towards the top of the table. Only 4 finals spots as we approach the halfway point of the season as well in NPL Women's New South Wales. So a lot to play for. The game that I did commentate this week for the second week in a row, I commentated Bulls FC. This week they travelled to the Arctic Circle to face the Gladesville Ravens. Amber Luchtmeyer with a brace once for the second week in a row. And something I learned about this game, Burke, is that Amber Luchtmeyer reminds me a lot of Holly McNamara. Not from an attacking standpoint, but because she also has no self-preservation skills.
Yep. Yeah, self-preservation skills. I would really recommend learning them and utilizing them.
Yes,
but that's just me.
Particularly if you are an attacking striker known for scoring goals, you probably want to stay on the pitch. One other point I wanted to make from NPL New South Wales as well is Abby Lemon made her return to UNSW where she spent last season as well. Very much enjoyed that. She got on the score sheet as well. Amber Luchtmeyer with a brace. That took her up to 5 goals in 4 games. Attacking players scoring goals, Burke. I mean,
who would have thought?
It baffles me, right?
That's crazy. I actually didn't know that they were allowed to do that. News to me.
Yeah, so that's all I've got from the NPL, Burke, unless you've got anything.
Yeah, NPL Vic is heating up. Heidelberg United are now 2 points clear, top of the table. They've only lost 1 game, 2 draws, 7 wins in 10 games, I want to say. But the once invincible South Melbourne have lost a game pretty convincingly, actually, against Essendon Royals 3-0. And Essendon are pretty far back down at 6. 6 on the table, that is. But yeah, it's heating up in the NPLW. I'm excited to start getting out to some games and hopefully doing a bit more writing and comms on it now that the dub season is finally over. It's very hard to juggle 2 seasons at the same time, especially when especially when one's in like a really crucial point. So, but yes, very much looking forward to getting out to more NPL.
Yep.
And you should all too.
Yes, you all absolutely should. I made a rather impassionate play, I believe it was last week, and I'll make the same play again. Get out to your NPL games. Plenty of exciting action on offer, especially if you want to watch some of your A-League women's stars. Absolutely all filtering their way back through the competitions at the moment, so well worth looking at. And then just a quick plug as well. So we're finally doing our A-League Women's season review that will drop on Thursday morning, the much vaunted season review. So you will get 2 episodes of the Dubcast again this week after we did our interview with Annabelle Martin and dropped that on Friday afternoon. So if you haven't checked that out, I'd highly recommend going to do that as well. Please do not get used to 2 episodes in a week. This will not be the routine going forward. It's just the last couple of weeks have been absolutely insane. So we're finally going to get to our season review. But that will do for this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network. Burke, go the Matildas, right?
Literally, con the Tillies. I will be there. I will be seated, and I will be ready to watch some Holly McNamara ball and hopefully some Izzy Gomez or Carly Johnson ball. Please. Thank you.
No worries. So we will be back on Thursday, as mentioned, for our season review episode. And then we'll be back next week as normal on Wednesday to review the 2 Matildas games against Argentina. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.